Okay, hello to everybody, wherever you are, if you're in your office or maybe at home. Unfortunately, we cannot be together as we would like after such a long time, more or less, in a quarantine. My name is Ina Homeier. I'm from the city of Vienna, from the department from urban planning and development, and I'm heading the section, the unit for smart cities there, which means that I'm responsible for the smart city strategy of the city of Vienna. I'm very happy to be here and to guide you, to moderate you through this panel dealing with climate adaptation and smart cities. And we will have three experts here with whom we will have a little dialogue. So what is it about? The session is about, of course, a part of the big crisis, the challenge we have, the pandemic, COVID-19. We still have other challenges facing in the world, which is the climate protection and climate change. And of course, we, the cities and municipalities, we are the key players in climate change adaptation and mitigation processes. What we are interested in is the smart city approach. So how are we cities dealing with the problems in a smart and clever way? As well, in the Agenda 2030, there's an explicit connection to the SDGs 11, the sustainable cities, and 13, the climate protection. And additionally, the European Union integration process dealing with the enlargement and European Union climate policy is as well dealing with these facts. For instance, in December 2019, the European Green Deal was presented by the European Commission, clearly with the goal to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions in the European Union to zero by 2050, which is quite a challenge. But in fact, most of our cities now try to reduce to zero by 2040. Yeah, and in December 2020, the European Council announced that the European Union wants to reduce its CO2 emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990. What we are going to do in this session, we will discuss three basic fund activities supported by the Austrian Development Cooperation that have contributed to climate change adaptation on local level in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Montenegro, and in Serbia. So I'm happy here to be with three experts. We will have one round of questions, which I'm going to ask to the experts, and then we will, as well, if we have time, have a round with the participants who are invited to write questions in the chat. And if I manage to press the right button, we maybe even can see you. So whom do we have here? As we are mainly women, I will exceptionally start with the man. It's Nikolas Neubert, who is an internationally experienced urban planner and expert for smart and resilient urban development. And he currently leads the AIT Competence Unit for Digital and Resilient Urban Development. With a multidisciplinary team of 60 experts, he pioneers how cities can design and implement their transformation towards climate neutrality. Then we have Nermina Suljević. Hi, Nermina. She is the head of department for European Union funds and coordinator of Smart City Initiative at the city of Sarajevo. So we already met some years ago. Yeah. And she has been working at the city of Sarajevo for more than a decade, trying to start and join processes which will make Sarajevo a better place to live, work, and visit. I hope I will be able to come again soon. And Dubravka Živković, she is at the moment head of the Department for Technical Sciences at the Institute for Information Technologies at the University of Kragujevac in Serbia. She also works part-time as a researcher at the Department for Energy and Process Engineering, and she has been working for 15 years at the Faculty of Engineering, mainly on projects of energy efficiency in buildings, industry, and municipalities. So welcome here. I'm already looking forward to an interesting discussion. I will each of you ask 2 to 3 questions, and I would ask you to stay more or less within 10 minutes that we have still time to the audience to ask questions as well. So I will again ask Nikolas the first questions, and then we continue with the female part of the panelists. Nikolas, you're an expert in urban resilience. And can you maybe briefly explain to us what urban resilience means? And are there regional differences?
Thanks a lot, Ina, for the question. And I think it's a rather rare honor, which I'm having in this round. Hello to everybody joining us. Quite happy to be here today. And I think looking at urban resilience, making it very brief and short, because you put us the time limit straight away. I mean, as the basic definition, it's basically for the cities to have the capacity for themselves, for the communities, surely also for the businesses, and to survive, to adapt, and to grow. To no matter what kind of stresses or even acute shocks they're hit by. I think that's one way to say what resilience means. And I think we're at the moment with a pandemic and the global pandemic. I think that's a situation where we can definitely say it's a great example. We're actually responding in this second with meeting us online here. And I think looking at city systems, that means really thinking about creating redundancies in all the city services, what we can be actually flexible in our everyday life and acting to it, and the capacity to learn. And I think the main idea is really becoming better, and so bettering the situation after this shock, or let's say chronic stress, because I think that's also important to understand. If we want to build urban resilience, we really have to look at the city holistically. And I think this is something for sure practitioners in the city, I think, are preaching forever. So I think it's a very well, it's a good term to kick off also the entire discussion around this. And I think cities face a multitude of challenges at the time. I think this is also what is quite crucial, because as you just said, yes, it's a pandemic which we're in, but actually the big challenge, and I think we've all known that before, even we even knew that we will be sitting here for some months in our home offices. There are much bigger challenges happening at the same time, which is definitely climate change. So I think it's really to deal with this multitude of challenges, like at the time, which could be, as we have right now, an acute situation with the pandemic, but at the same time also chronic stresses, like especially in Vienna, well-known summer heat stresses, unemployment. I'm unfortunately rather sure that this topic will become much bigger again now with the entire situation. So I think this is really for the cities a big topic to adapt and to grow. And I think we're in a life moment being here. Looking at regional differences, I would say definitely yes, there are regional differences, though the concept is universal. But I think one thing to keep in mind that local conditions make it appear differently. I think a big driver is definitely culture, and I think that means really responding to crisis, to shocks and stresses is different from location to location. The culture also drives how governmental structures are, for example, and for sure also the conditions we're dealing with. For example, certain regions are faced by a specific type of stresses more often. So I think this is something where it takes very different shapes. But as I said, the concept stays universal.
Thank you. You talked a lot about the pandemic. This is sort of covering our life at the moment. terms of regarding resilience, I think it's the pandemic is or resilience got another importance for us, and I think at the long term, hopefully the pandemic will give us a lot of chances as well to redesign, or especially regarding sustainability and the focus on climate protection. So regarding your strategy or the resilience approach you were talking about, how is this approach linked to the smart city concept when you're especially considering the BASIT funded project you're carrying out with the city of Montenegro on urban ecosystems services?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one point where I would pick up on is bring the two terms together, urban resilience and smart city, because I think in the past one can say, or that would be my interpretation, that really the term smart city has in a way suffered from no clear definition. And I think at the very beginning, especially big tech was occupying the topic and very presently driving also the topic. But I think the big drawback was really that it was a solely tech-driven approach. And I think looking back, planners, municipalities, as well as academia and practitioners, I opt to say we were comparatively slow to reflect, interpret what smart city means for us in the daily practice and how we can translate it actually. And I think in the last 3 years, that has changed. I think it has become more and more clear because we've started to put interpretations into this and basically developing the right strategies connected to it. And I think with this also it has become a topic which is, or a term, which is much broader. I think it has become much more comprehensive. And this is also the moment for me where smart and resilience actually start to connect. Because I think in the last, especially I would really say 3 years, it has reached a level where urban resilience is much more ingrained and connected to smart city activities, because I think it has found also, in a way that the right entry point into local strategies, into plans, and into the overall thinking. And I think especially the city of Vienna was definitely one of the precursors also in defining what that actually means. And looking then into the project, which we were, one can say, really having a very interesting role and the ability to be part in, is our project in Kolašin in Montenegro, where we have been working very closely with the municipality, the ministry, and our partners from the integrated urban solutions teams from Dres and Sommer. That was an interesting point to join, because giving you a little bit of background, it's a project which is, I would say, joining in at the tipping point of a certain development, because Montenegro, it has a vast potential for tourism. It's a very beautiful area we're dealing with there. And basically the aim was to start to build capacities on urban ecosystem services there. And I think looking at this, one can say you have two directories to take. I think we've seen this all over the places when tourism development hits a region. Either you go down the way of, let's say, heavy development and exploiting as fast as you can, or stepping back and defining boundaries. And I think this is how this project actually came together, that there was a very vivid discussion on being at this kind of intersection of, do we go left or do we go right? And I think with basically the action where we joined in, because it's an ongoing planning process now, we aim to demonstrate new approaches in planning and show how urban resilience can be ingrained in a plan. And for sure, very realistically showing what can be benefits right now in this planning process. So looking at where can the current planning really benefit. And that was definitely on the process design, which I think is very important when we talk about resilience, because it's not that we ingrain resilience without stakeholders, without processes, but also showing what kind of novel methods we can bring in. And that can be, for example, digital tools to understand the value of environment. Very interesting, obviously, for response also in the environment, to come up with a broader understanding what actually the local situation is, and what are the, how can I put this? Well, how can we influence it with certain planning decisions? So bring in scenario approaches, cadasters to get an overview what the environment actually delivers at the moment and what can be lost, basically, if it's touched on or even destroyed. And the overall aim was really to create a blueprint. This is why also the ministry was on board for ecology, spatial planning and urbanism. What kind of resilience elements can be actually put into other plans in the future? Because as you asked in the beginning, regional differences, I think definitely every condition, like every setting, has to find its own answers to how it can ingrain urban resilience. I think there is not something like a solution template you can just copy from place to place.
Okay. Thank you, Nikolas. I have an echo at the moment. Don't know, maybe. Okay, now it's better. This was quite interesting. As I said, I'm responsible for the smart city strategy in the city of Vienna, and at the moment we are updating it again, especially to the new regulations, the framework conditions of making our cities or our world, in fact, climate neutral until 2040. But as well, we realized that the factor of resilience has to strongly be included in the objectives we have, especially now after the, or hopefully soon, in the post-COVID area, which will hopefully last on. So it was quite interesting, and I hope that we will have further exchange in the future and further situations to be able to learn from each other, from the different cities. I would continue now, as we still have time later to discuss amongst us, or maybe with questions from the audience. I would like to continue now with Nermina. And I have some questions prepared for you as well. First of all, which are the main priorities? As I know that we have sort of given you a little bit of input in developing the smart city strategy, and thank you here for Nikolas for the flowers. So it's always good for us to hear that we have a little bit front runner city in terms of the focus of a smart city, that it's not technical oriented purely, but as well putting people in the middle. So my question is, what are your priorities from the Sarajevo's point of view that will be addressed, or what are addressed by the smart city strategy? What are your important local stakeholders? Because we know that it's without them, it's absolutely not possible to promote and implement them. And how are you getting them on board?
Okay, as for the priorities, we also asked that question our citizens, because we wanted to start with what's the most important for the citizens. So when we started our smart city initiative, we conducted a survey asking our citizens what are the burning issues for them. So the results of this survey was, we got 3 areas which were detected as most important. One is air pollution. You probably know that Sarajevo has a big problem with air pollution. It's very often on the top of the world's lists as the most polluted city in the world. The second one was public transport, and the third one was corruption. So we thought those 3 areas were something to begin with, to start with some pilot projects to show also the citizens what Nikolas was saying, that maybe even to change the mindset of people who may be confused that just the terminology of smart city, because people still think that it's just about clicking something, you know. So we just need to change also the mindsets of people to understand that smart cities is more than that, and that it actually, the smart solutions can actually solve the real problems, the problems that our common citizens are facing every day. So we started with this. But also what we heard this morning from the mayor of Vienna, when he mentioned in his video that SDGs need to be merged in smart city strategies. I think that's also very important, that we also need to have in mind once we are at the stage when we are drafting the smart city strategy for Sarajevo. So that's also very important to have in mind. And as for the local stakeholders, for you who don't know, Sarajevo has most complex governance structure, not just in the state, but probably in the region. We are very complex, so we have many different stakeholders, but we already experimented with this approach to have on board the private sector, NGOs, academia, and governance levels all together. And in that regard, we got a good advice from Dominik Weiss from the Urban Innovation Vienna when we were cooperating on this topic. He actually pointed out to us that each city has its narrative, and that we need to have the vision for Sarajevo, and that's the starting point. So we think that's also something where we can bring all stakeholders together when we have a joint vision. How do we see Sarajevo, in 2030 or in the future, and just to have that vision as something to bring together all stakeholders, and then to go from there to build on that narrative about our city. So that, I think that's excellent advice that we're trying to apply, and we're trying to have different workshops for visioning Sarajevo, and with our City Mind Lab, and with our citizens, just to see how do they see our city. And we already have these clean air, clean rivers, green. So we already have those common grounds that we can build upon that. So yeah, I think this is for start. That I think this answers your questions for start, and we can talk.
Yeah. Thank you. So I understand that this collaboration with the city of Vienna, and especially with our smart city agency, could give a good impact, in fact, to the development of your strategies. I think it was quite intense from time to time, and there was a lot of exchange and meetings. I understood already your main findings. Can you envision further collaboration in the future development, or update or implementation between Sarajevo and Vienna? And what are sort of the projects or main focuses where you think the exchange and the working together would be especially helpful?
Well, we are very grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with the city of Vienna on this issue. It started with the Vienna Days in Sarajevo with Eurocom PR and Tiana and her team, which we are very grateful, and we established this cooperation. And then the basic project, where we built up on this first communication, the first contact we established. And we are continuing with this, and we are very grateful, and we are already seeing so many good things coming out of it. One thing is this official result of our collaboration with Urban Innovation Vienna, the status review document that we have, and the workshops we had with Dominik Weiss and his team in Sarajevo. It was good to have a fresh perspective, and to have somebody who will discuss with us local context to point to our strengths, to our weaknesses, to opportunities. So maybe sometimes it's good to have this outside perspective to some things that we maybe don't see from the inside. So I think this is where we benefited from this collaboration. But also, just even though Vienna is far ahead, of course, ahead in front of Sarajevo, but still we can find some, even from just hearing from the experience and from the process that Vienna went through, we can see some good, we can find some good advice, some good models to apply, of course, to adjust to Sarajevo context, and then to apply. So there are really many benefits from this. and we are hoping to continue cooperating with the city of Vienna through our office Eurocompiar in Sarajevo, but also we have direct contact with Urban Innovation Vienna, and it goes even beyond what we envisaged in the first place, because now we have them participating in some other events like Sarajevo Innovation Summit and things like that. So we're really expanding the cooperation, which was first set through BASIC projects, through Eurocompiar, and we are benefiting so much and building our network through this.
Thank you, Nermina. I think you said just something very important, what we cities understood in the last decades. It's important to understand that we are here, especially regarding the climate topic. We are not in a competition. We have to learn from each other. We have to work together. And only if we really put all our forces together, we can win this fight. And I'm getting pathetic here because I have an amount of children. It's really the future generations. I had a fantastic quality of life and I want to keep this for my children. So it's really worth fighting together and not against. The support, Lena first asked me if I'm able to share something on the screen. I'm not, so I will go to very old fashioned. It's like analog. This is our smart city strategy. And because you talked about the SDG and our mayor focusing. So what we did when we updated the Smart City Vienna strategy, we thought, okay, now we have the Sustainable Development Goals, which we should reach. We have to reach because we have a commitment. And normally a typical city strategy would be to design another strategy. So a Sustainable Development Goals strategy for Vienna. We didn't do this. We integrated all the 17 SDGs in the smart city strategy, and we demonstrated how each of our main fields are contributing to the one or even more, in most cases, more SDGs. And one story I like to tell is because there's one SDG, I don't know which number it's, I think, living underwater. And I thought, oh my God, we will not, living in oceans, I can't remember. And I thought, oh my God, we will never contribute because we don't have a sea anymore. We have lakes, but not a sea. I forgot now what is the number of this SDG, other than the name. And then someone explains me that it is relevant because it has something to do with our habits in buying plastic and so on, and what we eat. And then in avoiding plastic, we contribute to the quality and to the sustainability of our oceans. So we managed this as well to reach this SDG with our smart city strategy. Now I come to Dubravka. Hello here as well. You are from Serbia, and I especially focusing on smart housing in Serbia. And my questions to you are, you carried out the BASIC Fund project on networking for sustainable cities. The focus was on smart housing, and maybe you could shortly explain to us why this smart housing topic has been identified as one of the keys to achieve sustainable cities in Serbia.
Yes, thank you for having me to this session. It's an honor to be with you and other participants. Yes, I would like to say first that I suppose I will represent something of a bottom-up initiative, since we are working with organizations and civil society and initiatives that comes from the stakeholders at the moment, not from the city. And why smart housing? Because there is a huge lack of innovations concerning environmental impact of the construction area or of construction and buildings, and also lack of affordability performance in that sector. And that is really what concerns us regarding the life in the cities. So besides considerable consumption of raw materials, largest consumers of final energy is housing sector. Around 33% of the final energy is consumed in housing sector. So in this environmental crisis, I would say, consuming of energy or attitude to producing and consuming and attitude in lowering the demand for energy is very important for living in the cities. And beside that, I would say that the part of the constructing area, there is a problem with housing costs in Serbia, since 70% of young people are still living with the parents in the houses, and there is a great percentage of people, like 66% of people in households allocate more than 40% of their income to the housing costs, and that is a huge problem with the people that lack area for their living, and then wants to buy the house and or apartment, and the costs are high. So we were thinking about what can be smarter in that approach. How can we build our houses or our flats in a more sustainable way and more future-proof way in order to lower those costs and maintain our quality of life, as you mentioned before. Because we were thinking about the future generations and what houses they are going to live, and we are talking a lot about a Green Deal strategy of reconstructing the buildings that we have at our worldwide housing sector. So we need to be more smarter in building and reconstructing our housing sector.
Thank you, Dubravka. Just because we have these questions as well in Vienna about the affordable housing, and especially in the renovation of houses, we always have discussions that a change of the energy system or additional isolation or change of windows or whatever makes the housing more expensive for the tenants. What is your position to this? Did you find a solution, or are you discussing it in terms of, okay, now we have to invest more, but in the long term, maybe the costs are getting cheaper?
Yeah, there are two most important things when we are talking about I think affordability, and one is the rise of the electricity prices that are ongoing process and will be much more in the future, I suppose. And the other thing that we are also talking about is producing the energy, a democratization of energy production process, and a way to use renewable energy resources. Technology prices are going down at this moment, and that is something that is, I would say, something to looking forward in the future. And we were talking a lot about the technology, because when we are talking about prices and affordability, we are talking also about a technology that is put in the buildings and constructing and renovating the buildings. And now our standing is be smart, use robust, low-cost measures, think the future, think about the cost, think about operational cost, because emissions, we have two parts of the emissions. One part is when we are constructing the buildings, and the other part is when you live and use the building, and that is for 40 or 50 years. And those emissions are quite large, especially in the parts of the world when electricity is produced from coal-fired thermal plants, such as Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina also. So there is a great part of I would say environmental impact and environmental burden with operation of the housing. So we are for the holistic approach for the strategy regarding how we are going to use those buildings and use that technology. We also find it very important to talk about how people are using technology. We can work and have more and more innovative technology, but how do we use it? How do we know to make it that technology in the best way? And that is one thing that is about energy efficiency, and what are we striving for.
Thank you. I have a question. Maybe you cannot answer it, but what is do you see it as a challenge, or are you focusing as well now in Serbia, or maybe in research on the topic of circular economy and urban mining regarding smart housing? I see yes, you can say something. I was hoping so.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to talk to, because it's not my field of expertise, but I'm really glad that we are talking about. We have one issue that we need to address. We don't have any more social housing in Serbia. Only 1% of the housing sector is to social housing, and there is a big how to say, a gap there, and circular economy in reconstruction of buildings and deep renovation is something that has a great potential with this environmental crisis, and I really hope that we will be addressing more of these issues in Western Balkan and the region in whole Europe. And I hope that we will use the technology to go through barriers in that area that are not just technical but social, but political, that we need to talk more about communities and their involvement in all these really important strategic questions. And I'm looking forward to policy changes in Serbia regarding all these issues, and circular economy and housing and sustainability for that matter.
Thank you. This is my last question now. The sustainable housing, you gave the keyword. Is it high in the agenda of the local government in Serbia?
Well, not to my knowledge at this moment, because there are huge investments in construction sector, and there are key players that are very important and very, I would say, they have strength at this moment. And they are dictating the narrative for this. But what I see are the small changes, and at the moment there is a public discussion on the changes on law on energy, and guidebooks and rule books on energy efficiency, and there are changes there. talk about energy cooperatives, about some initiatives that would make sustainability more important and more on agenda in governmental and policy regulations. So I'm looking forward to those small changes that we have at the moment.
Yeah, we are all facing these challenges in one area or the other. So good luck, and for us as well. Thank you for this round. I can now give the room for the audience. If you have any questions, you can write it in the chat or ask me to give you access to the moderation panel. We're still waiting. If someone wants to ask something, so I would give to you three I heard that you were quite interesting as me. Maybe you want to ask something to your colleagues. Just give me a sign. No? Nikolas? No questions to Nermina or Dubravka?
I think, I mean, we've been talking so much. Honestly, I would like to give the chance to some audience questions. If
unfortunately, nobody still got the courage. So I can give you the panel as for now, nobody has questions. Obviously, you made a really good job and convinced everybody. So yeah. Nermina or Dubravka?
I have a question for Nermina. You mentioned that you had the survey and the air pollution came to the first place. And I suppose you are watching the news from the region. So we also, that question came finally in the public arena last month because of high pollution in Serbia also. Maybe you can share some initiatives that you have in Sarajevo regarding that.
Yes, well, we had, as part of Smart City Initiative, we tried some pilot activities. We published a public call inviting the private sector and everybody who has any idea how to give contribution to solving it. It's a very serious problem, but at least with some and we got some interesting ideas from private sector. I mean, we have from measurement of air pollution to how to reduce it, but we found the three main causes. The first one is the way that those houses are used, the heating systems, so the coal, and which is very, very polluting. The second is the traffic, so the number of cars in Sarajevo. I mean, and just the position of Sarajevo itself is problematic, and of course the building when it's not in accordance with the urban regulation or the planning, and then it prevents the airflow, and then it contributes to high air pollution. And we now have a more, also the government is getting more and more involved, giving incentives so people can switch to clean energy in their heating systems. We have also international community stepping in, the UNDP and others also giving some incentives, so we can solve at least one of those causes. Of course, with the traffic, that's another issue that is being resolved. We had some attempts, those plates, who has the odd number, or so they can, but we don't think that's the right solution. But they try to implement it when it's really, really difficult to breathe, when we have a big air pollution in Sarajevo. But I see that they are coming to some really systematic solutions and approaches regarding the heating systems, and I hope the situation will get better soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
I can see the question from Alexandra that are there any other cities in Bosnia that have smart city strategies or concepts? Not that I know of, but also the Sarajevo is only on its way to have the first smart city strategy. We know that there are some cities that are also started the process towards the smart city strategies. We have Banja Luka. Actually, maybe Banja Luka has one. I'm not quite sure, because they're quite active in this area, and we have some other cities in Bosnia that are really working hard.
Thank you. So now the questions are dropping in. Dubravka, I realized that you see the chat as well. I think you saw the question. So you can ask directly. It's about the issue about the price for energy, and how would you see the price for energy rise, having in mind the social need for cheap energy?
Yes, that is the main question in Serbia, but also in the region. Very low price of electricity. Serbia has like second lowest price in Europe, and unpopular thinking about that our prices are really low and that should be much higher. On the other hand, there is that issue of the social need for the cheap energy, but I'm very sorry that I'm going to say this, but we need higher price of the electricity, because with these prices we cannot have feasible and investments with the payback periods that can help investors in any field that uses in industry, in housing, in whatever part of the industry community we are talking about. And there is the second, even for me, bigger problem is the attitude toward the energy when is that cheap, that we are not value enough. On the other hand, we are paying the price for the electricity, just not paying in directly. We are paying it indirectly with all the tangible results of the way we produce energy now, maintaining the low price, using the cheap and low quality coal that is making all those air pollutions and health issues that we are facing, and we are paying for all these environmental problems that we are causing, the way we are producing and pricing the electricity at the moment. So I believe that we need to raise the price of the electricity, but we also need to make a very different approach in how we produce our energy. We need to use more possibilities for renewable energy resources. We need to use more prosumer approach to produce and consume energy at the local communities, and decentralized grids, or whatever more distributed way for energy to be used.
Thank you, Dubravka. There's no other question for now in the chat. I have a question maybe to Nikolas, but Nermina and Dubravka, I think you maybe can contribute as well. I mean, we are talking now about climate adaptation, but in fact we have to, the focus still must be climate protection, because first we have to protect and then we should adapt, and we will not solve our world when we just adapt and adapt and adapt. And it's for many people is sort of climate projection is we have to give up of something. Yeah, maybe our quality of life will decrease or so on. And how are you getting the people on board? our citizens in terms of behavior change, in terms of awareness rising. I mean, the topic is the phrase "no smart city without smart citizen." It doesn't mean now to have people which are completely firm with ICT, with technological development, but to really change towards more sustainability. So what are your approaches here? What did you learn?
Yeah, I think it reminds me a little bit when you say also using new technologies and smart citizens. Reminds me a little bit that in the beginning of it, we all thought that we were just clicking the traffic jam and everything away, and then we found out it didn't work by surprise. I think really looking at how to take the citizens on board, I think it's a lot what you said in awareness, and I think demonstrating and making things tangible, because I think the topic climate change, or we have to reduce CO2 emissions, all of this is very bulky abstract stuff. And I think this is where the magic lies. It's a combination of communication, how we bring it to the citizens. It could be nudging of, we're at the moment transforming a huge new site in the city of Heidelberg in Germany, where the discussion is, well, what will a kind of new lifestyle, and also to a certain extent a digital lifestyle, be? Like, how can we basically make citizens more aware? How can we make it, how can we bring in certain parts in gamification? How can we connect it with new business models? Thinking about smart housing, I think in this point is very interesting. Find new models on how citizens consume energy, like very simple stuff. I think we don't have to go too excited and too complex. I think we're always very often in the discussions, we're aiming a little bit too high. And I think with this level of too high tech, in a way, we already start to lose the majority. And I think we really have to think about the simple entry points of how local energy can be supplied and, for example, demand be reduced. I think it's starting on the easy sides, but then also thinking about how we can make it tangible to explain it. And I think therefore we can use models. I mean, nowadays everybody nearly has a smartphone. Models for people to explore what climate change means, and for example, involve them in the design. Using a smartphone is very easy. You have let's say a plaza design in a new district. You will know that by design, if we put the classical design of just a sealed off plaza, probably we will get some heat stresses, which then increases cooling demand and so on and so forth. So just involve people very playfully to demonstrate it. And I think this has been shown by several institutions, and we've been running projects on this where you involve the citizens in the design. For example, they simply, I mean, I give this very simple example of the plaza. You start to design it as a citizen, and you see, when I use this surface, when I use these trees, when I put the bench here, it's already getting cooler. And that's something people start to understand. And I think it's a very simple example, but I think it comes down to a lot of these things to make it from a very expert, abstract discussion of national climate goals, urban goals, to something where people understand, okay, that's my living reality. And I think this is a way how we can start to involve citizens on a very good level.
Thank you to share this experience. Nermina or Dubravka, Nermina, you want to add something?
Yes, I completely agree with Nikolas. We need to bring the abstract, issues down to the citizens. We have also one example of one pilot activities where one foundation, they are building the little lamps with sensors. So, and actually the citizens are involved in building those lamps, and they're changed when the air pollution, so when the air is polluted, they give the red light. So when the air is clean, it's green. So, and then it's connected to the platform where they can see the air pollution in the whole city. Everybody who has their lamp, it's on their balconies, and they're connected to this platform, and it shows the air pollution in the city. So it's something that's really tangible. It's something that the citizen can see, and they participate in this. So of course we need to have all those, strategies and high politics and everything, but at the end of the day we need to bring it down to the citizens and show them that, you know, and just bring it down to where it hurts them the most, so they can see it, they can feel it, and they can you know, just like these lamps, they can see the light changing when the air is polluted.
Thank you. Dubravka?
Yes, I would also like to add that my impression for last 2 or 3 years is the strength of the young people and their initiatives and their school strikes and their awareness of the environmental crisis and their and also they're living on the internet. So I think that we should acknowledge more our young people and their understanding of the situation and also the technology, the way they are using it to connect to each other. And I believe that we need to give them more space for learning from them.
Thank you very much. Yes, I can only support what you all said. Okay, I think we have to more or less finish. We're at the end. Alexander Schartl asked something about financing on a regional level, about the measures for climate adaptation and the funding from the European Union level. I mean, to the European Union level, I can maybe say something as well. It's, as we know, is the Green Deal program and Horizon Europe, which is up to come. I think where we can get support mainly, and in the structural funds, of course, which are important. But I think there's a necessity as well on the regional local level. In Vienna, we have the Climate and Energy Fund where we can get projects funded. I don't know how it is in your countries, in your cities. I think generally it's not enough.
That's true.
Yeah. So, okay. Each of you would have 1 minute to give a last statement, and then we have to say goodbye and to join the next sessions. I start with now with Dubravka, maybe, if you just want to give us a final phrase on the way.
Well, I didn't plan it, but I would stick with those support for the young people and their view on the environmental crisis. I would like to acknowledge their wisdom here.
Thank you. Nikolas, 1 sentence for the way.
I think connecting to this, I think also acknowledging that the borders between the digital and the analog, as we're experiencing these days, they're fading. And I think we have to stop sometimes discussions which we're having still of this two sides, because I think we have to acknowledge that we have to combine the right processes and integrate basically new instruments and tools that we have from the digital side, which resonate obviously also very strong with younger people.
Okay, and Nermina?
I would just use this time to thank you, you as a moderator, and also the Nikolas, Dubravka, I know, who participated and the host, because I think it's also very important to talk about these things, to exchange experiences, to learn from each other, and that's also one part of the solution. So we can talk about it and learn from each other and apply what we learn. So thank you all, and thank you for the hosts.
Yeah, thank you very much from my side. It was a pleasure to be with you, to discuss with you, and I hope that our ways will cross again in the future. I mean, generally, it's a good approach that we don't have to travel through the whole world, and we're definitely contributing to climate protection, but I would have liked to do it in a voluntarily way and not forced by the corona crisis. So thank you very much, and hope to see you in one of the breakout sessions. And good luck and force on your fight. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to everybody.